Welcome back to Family Drama Stories. Today I am sharing the story of Serena, a 29-year-old financial analyst in Nashville, Tennessee, who spent her entire 20s building something that was entirely hers. She worked overtime, skipped vacations, lived on a tight budget for years, all to save enough for a down payment on her own apartment in Midtown Nashville. Her name was on the deed. Her money paid every mortgage installment. Her hands painted every wall. And then one morning, her parents showed up at her door with a lawyer, a stack of ownership transfer papers, and one simple demand: sign the apartment over to her older brother and let him move in. They actually believed she would say yes. She didn't. She looked at the lawyer, looked at her parents, looked at her brother standing there like it already won, and said, calm as anything, let our lawyers meet each other in court. What happened next is the story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. Because the people who were supposed to love Serena unconditionally had been running a play against her for months, and she had no idea how far it had already gone. Before I get into the full story, drop a comment right now and tell me what time it is, where you are, and what city you re-watching from. I share these stories because I believe they deserve to be heard, and I want to know just how far this one travels. If you renew here, hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Every single comment means the world to this channel, and it tells me you here with me. Now, to understand why that morning happened the way it did, you need to know what took place at a family backyard barbecue 3 weeks earlier. Because that's where it all started. And what Serena's parents said in front of the entire family that day was just the beginning of something far worse than she could have imagined. It was a Sunday afternoon in September, the kind Nashville does best. The heat finally breaking, the sky going soft and golden. The smell of charcoal drifting across the backyard of her parents' house on Clover Ridge Drive. Serena had no reason to think this day would be anything other than what it looked like. Her mother's birthday barbecue, the same gathering they did every year. She arrived around 2 in the afternoon, same as always. Brought a store-bought cake because Connie, 55, always said she preferred Publix over homemade. The backyard was already full. Her Aunt Marlene, 53, had claimed the best lawn chair. Cousin Jade, 27, was helping carry plates from the kitchen, and Uncle Phil, 60, was standing near the grill with a beer, talking to nobody in particular. Her brother Brent, 34, was already there too, sitting at the far end of the picnic table with his sunglasses on, scrolling his phone like he had somewhere better to be. Serena made her rounds, said hello, helped set out the side dishes. Everything felt normal. Her dad Douglas, 57, was in full host mode, refilling drinks, cracking jokes, telling the same story about his old Chevy truck that everyone had heard at least 4 times. Her mom Connie was glowing, genuinely happy, hugging anyone who came close. For the first 2 hours, it was exactly what a birthday party was supposed to be. Then Douglas tapped his beer bottle with a fork. Can I get everyone's attention for just a minute? The backyard went quiet. Serena assumed he was going to toast Connie. He was standing near the head of the table, glass raised. Smiles away, he smiled when he felt like he was in control of a room. Connie and I have been thinking a lot lately about family, about what it means to actually take care of each other. And we decided the best birth gift we could give this year was to something we bought. It was something we arranged. He paused, looked directly at Serena. Serena has agreed to transfer her apartment over to Brent as a family gift. He's been working hard to get back on his feet, and having a solid place to land in Midtown Nashville is exactly what he needs right now. We're proud of both our kids for making this happen. Serena felt the air leave her lungs. She hadn't agreed to anything. Not a conversation, not a suggestion, not even a vague implication. There had been zero discussion about her apartment, ever, until that sentence came out of her Fargstra mouth, in front of 11 people holding paper plates. Brent pulled his sunglasses down and nodded slowly, like he was accepting an award. Aunt Marlene put her hand to her chest. Serena, honey, that is so generous of you. Connie was already tearing up, the happy kind, dabbing at the corner of her eye with a napkin. She reached across the table and squeezed Brent's arm. Serena stood up. I didn't agree to that. The backyard went completely still. Someone's kid dropped a chip somewhere behind her. Aunt Marlene's smile froze in place. Jade looked up from her plate. Douglas kept his voice steady. Serena, this isn't the time. Then when is the time, Dad? Because you just told 11 people I'm giving away my apartment. And I'm hearing it for the first time right now. Same as everyone else. Brent pulled his sunglasses off. You seriously doing this right now? In front of everyone? You embarrassing the whole family. Embarrassing the family, Serena repeated. She looked at him for a long second. You unbelievable. Douglas lowered his voice, the way he did when he wanted to sound calm but wasn't. We will talk about this later. Serena picked up her bag. She didn't slam anything, didn't raise her voice again. She just walked through the back gate and kept walking to her car. Behind her, she could hear the murmur starting up. The low, uncomfortable shuffle of a party that had just turned into something else entirely. Connie caught up to her at the driver's side door, crying before Serena even turned around. You just ruined my birthday. You couldn't have just let it go for one afternoon? Serena looked at her mother. Mom, he is not getting my apartment. She got in the car and drove home. That evening, she typed out a message to the family group chat. Clear, direct, no room for interpretation. She was not giving Brent her apartment. The subject was closed. If anyone wanted to discuss reasonable ways to help Brent find housing, she was open to that conversation. But her apartment was not on the table. It never had been. The responses came fast. Douglas called twice. Connie left voicemail that was mostly crying. Brent said nothing directly to Serena. But within the hour, Jade texted to let her know Brent had screenshot the message and sent it to Aunt Marlene with the caption, "See what I am dealing with." Serena put her phone face down on the counter and stared at the ceiling. She thought the message made things clear. She thought drawing that line in writing, in front of the whole family, would be enough to end it. She was wrong. While she was trying to move on, Brent and Douglas were already making a move she never anticipated. Calvin, the building manager of Serena's Midtown complex, was not the kind of man who called residents unless he had a reason. So when his name appeared on her phone screen on a Tuesday morning, she picked up immediately. He kept it straightforward. That morning, two men had come into the leasing office asking questions about her unit. One was older, mid to late 50s, heavyset, spoke like he was used to being in charge. The other was younger, early 30s, mostly quiet, but kept looking around the lobby like he was already mentally measuring the space. Neither of them identified themselves by name. What they asked was not normal. They wanted to know the process for transferring property ownership between family members within the building. They asked whether the HOA had any restrictions on gifting a unit to a relative. Then one of them, the older one, asked who could sign transfer documents on behalf of the current owner if that owner was, as he put it, not immediately available to participate. Calvin told Serena he knew within 30 seconds that something was off. There was no authorization from her, no power of attorney on file, no prior communication of any kind indicating she had given anyone permission to make inquiries about her property. He told both men that all matters related to her unit required her direct involvement, gave them nothing further, and walked them back out to the lobby. As soon as they left, he updated her file. A formal note, time-stamped. Only Serena had authority to make any decisions regarding her apartment. He also flagged the front desk. No information about her unit, her account, or her residency was to be shared with anyone who did not present written authorization signed by her. I don't want to overstep, Calvin said on the phone. But I've been managing this building for 11 years. And those questions didn't sound like a family trying to help someone move. They sounded like people trying to figure out how to move without asking you. Serena thanked him. She kept her voice steady until she hung up. She already knew exactly who those two men were. The older one who spoke like he was in charge. That was Douglas. The younger one, quiet, scoping out the lobby. That was Brent. They had driven to her building, walked into the leasing office, and started asking how to take her apartment without her cooperation. She had not invited them. She had not been informed. They had simply shown up and started gathering information like the process was already underway. She sat with that for a long moment. Then she forwarded Calvin S. callback number to her own notes and added it to a folder she was already building. Screenshots, timestamps, voicemails, the works. She didn't know exactly what she was preparing for yet, but something told her to keep everything. That evening, her phone buzzed with a text from Brent. No apology. No explanation. No acknowledgement that he had just sent their father to scout her building like a property he was about to acquire. Just this. I'll be moving in on the 1st of next month. You should start packing up your stuff. Serena read it twice. Her hands were steady at first, and then they were in tea, but not because she was frightened. It was something closer to disbelief. The kind that comes when a 34-year-old man sends a text like that to his younger sister about her own apartment, the apartment that had her name on the deed, her bank account on the mortgage, her furniture in every room, and apparently means every word of it. She screenshotted it immediately, saved it to the folder. Then she scrolled to a contact she had not needed in a professional capacity before, at least not for something like this. Thea had been Serena's closest friend since their second year of college. She was also a civil attorney. 3 years into her own practice in Nashville, the kind of lawyer who was precise and calm in exactly the situations where other people started to spiral. Serena called her instead of texting because some things needed to be said out loud. She read Brent S. message to Thea word for word. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Okay, Thea said. Do not respond to that. Not a single word. And if they show up at your door, you do not open it until I tell you to. I need you to send me everything. The message. Whatever Calvin told you. All of it. What are you going to do? Serena asked. Just send me the files, Thea said. I'll handle the rest. Serena didn't fully understand what handle it meant yet. But she trusted Thea the way you trust someone who has never once told you something they didn't mean. She sent the folder, locked her phone, and went to bed. 3 days later, at 7 in the morning on a Saturday, her doorbell rang, And when she pulled up the camera feed on her phone, what she saw standing in the hallway outside her front door stopped her cold. Standing in the hallway outside Serena's front door were Douglas, Connie, Brent, and a man she had never seen before, wearing a charcoal blazer, carrying a leather document case, looking like he had done this kind of thing many times and preferred it when everyone stayed calm. Serena did not open the door. She stood in her kitchen, phone already in her hand, watching the four of them on the camera feed. Douglas had his arms crossed. Connie was smoothing the front of her blouse the way she did when she was nervous. Brent was leaning against the hallway wall like he lived there already. She called Thea. "They outside my door," Serena said. "All three of them. And there's a man with a briefcase." "Don't open it yet," Thea said immediately. "I am 12 minutes away. I was already heading over. Just wait for me. And Serena, do not sign anything. It doesn't matter what it looks like or what they tell you it is. You do not put your name on a single piece of paper." Serena set her phone down, took a slow breath, and walked to the door. She opened it but did not step back to let them in. She stood in the frame, one hand on the doorknob, and looked at her father. Douglas gestured toward the man beside him. "This is Mr. Holt. He is an attorney. We asked him to help us finalize the paperwork so we can get this resolved properly. Mr. Holt extended his hand with a professional nod. "Miss Serena, I appreciate you opening the door. I'm here to assist with a straightforward property transfer. I was informed that both parties had already reached an agreement, and my role is simply to facilitate the documentation." Serena did not shake his hand. She looked at him directly. "Who told you I had agreed to anything, Mr.?" Holt opened his case and produced a set of documents. Clean, formal, printed on legal stationery with her full name and Brent's name side by side at the top of the transfer agreement. He set them against the document case so she could see them clearly. "Your father indicated that the arrangement had been discussed and settled within the family. My father was mistaken," Serena said. Douglas stepped forward. "Serena, stop making this harder than it needs to be. Mr. Holt is here as a professional. The least you can do is let him explain the process. The process for transferring my apartment to someone without my consent," she said. "There is no process for that." Brent pushed off the wall. "You were being ridiculous. This is a family decision. You don't get to just—" The elevator at the end of the hallway opened. Thea stepped out holding a coffee cup, her bag over one shoulder, taking in the scene in the hallway with a single, unhurried look. She walked toward them at a perfectly even pace, stopped just behind Serena's shoulder, and smiled at Mr. Holt the way lawyers smile when they want you to know they are working. "Hi, I'm Thea. I am Serena's attorney. Would you mind if I took a look at those documents?" The hallway went very quiet. Douglas stared at Thea. Brent's expression shifted from confident to something harder to name. Connie's lower lip began to tremble. Mr. Holt, to his credit, maintained his composure. He handed the documents to Thea without hesitation. She took them, set her coffee on the hallway console table, and read through the transfer agreement at a pace that made clear she was reading every word. Then she looked up at Mr. Holt, not at Douglas, not at Brent, directly at the attorney. "I want to make sure you understand something," she said, her voice entirely level. "My client has not agreed to this transfer. She has not agreed to any transfer. There is no prior written consent, no verbal agreement on record. and no legal basis for this document to exist with her name on it. If you continue to represent the other party in pursuing this, we will treat it as an unsolicited attempt to pressure my client into an unlawful property transfer. Mr. Holt turned to Douglas. His professional composure was still intact, but something behind his eyes had shifted. You told me your daughter had consented to this arrangement. Douglas said nothing. He opened his mouth once, closed it, and looked at the floor. That was the moment Brent decided to fill the silence by raising his voice. He stepped toward Serena, pointing, telling her she was destroying the family over a piece of real estate, that she had always been selfish, that nobody in the family would ever forgive her for this. 2 doors down the hall, a neighbor opened their door and looked out. Thea stepped slightly forward. I'm going to need all of you to leave this hallway right now. Brent kept talking. Connie started crying. Douglas turned and walked toward the elevator without another word, like a man who suddenly needed to be somewhere else. Mr. Holt gathered his documents, snapped his case shut, and paused in front of Serena before following them. He pressed his business card into her hand quietly. I apologize for the circumstances, he said. You should have formal legal representation if this continues. He stepped into the elevator. Brent was still standing in the hallway, jaw tight, staring at Serena. Just before the elevator doors closed, he looked straight at her and said it loud enough for the neighbors still watching from down the hall to hear. This is over, Serena. The doors closed. The hallway went silent. Thea picked up her coffee, looked at Serena, and said, So, that happened. And Brent was right. It wasn't over. Because the following week, every member of their extended family received a meeting invitation, and Serena's name was at the center of it, not as someone who had been wronged, but as someone who was about to be put on trial. Aunt Marlene, Connie's younger sister, a woman who had never once stayed out of other people's business when she could insert herself into it, organized a Zoom meeting for that Wednesday evening and sent the link to every family member she had a contact for. The subject line read, Urgent Family Meeting regarding Serena. Serena was not on the invite list. Jade sent her the link anyway, with a single text, You need to see this. Serena called Thea immediately. They agreed to join together, Thea on her own laptop, Serena on her phone, both with their cameras off, display name set to nothing identifiable. They would listen. They would not speak. And Serena would record everything. The meeting started at 7. 17 family members were on the call. Aunt Marlene opened it like a moderator who had already decided the verdict before the first word was spoken. Connie went first. She was crying before she finished her second sentence, describing how Serena had humiliated the family at the birthday party, how she had refused to listen to reason, how she had hired a lawyer and turned a family matter into something cold and legal. We raised her, Connie said, pressing a tissue to her face. We gave her everything, and this is how she treats us. Douglas followed without being asked. His voice was steady, controlled, the tone he used when he wanted to sound like the reasonable one in the room. He told the family that Susie was living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment she didn't need, that Brent had been struggling to find stable housing for over a year, and that any reasonable person in Serena's position would understand what the right thing to do was. She knows what this family has sacrificed, he said. She's choosing to ignore it. Aunt Marlene nodded along to everything, occasionally adding exactly, and that's right the way people do when they've already picked a side. Then Brent joined the call. He didn't bother with emotion. He spoke plainly, like he was stating facts that had already been settled. He said the apartment was, in his words, always supposed to be mine. He said the family had discussed it long before Serena ever put in an offer, that there had been an understanding, an expectation, and that Serena had gone ahead and bought the place anyway, knowing full well what the plan had been. She didn't just refuse to help, Brent said. She took something that was already spoken for. Serena sat very still, listening to her brother describe her apartment, the apartment she had saved for over 5 years, the one she had researched, toured, negotiated, and signed her name to, as something that had been spoken for. As though her years of work were an inconvenient footnote to a plan she had never been told about. Jade's small thumbnail in the corner of the screen shifted. She unmuted herself. But Serena bought it herself, right? Jade said. Her name is on the deed. She pays the mortgage. So how is it? I mean, legally, how does any of this work? Aunt Marlene cut her off before she finished. Jade, honey, this isn't about legality. This is about what's right for this family. I'm just asking. We're not doing this right now. Aunt Marlene's voice had an edge to it. Jade went quiet. Her thumbnail went still. Then Uncle Phil's camera turned on. He had been on the call the entire time. Silent, his face unreadable. When he spoke, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I've watched Douglas and Connie do this exact thing to 3 other people in this family over the past 20 years, he said. They find whoever is doing well. And then they decide that person owes something to whoever they've decided to protect. It happened with my brother Raymond and his savings account. It happened with Susan and her vacation property. And now it's happening with Serena. Aunt Martin's hand shot toward her keyboard. Phil, I'm going to mute. You can mute me, he said calmly. But everyone on this call just heard it. His mic went silent. But the damage, or the truth, depending on which side of the screen you were on, had already landed. For a moment, nobody said anything. Connie stared at her camera. Douglas's jaw tightened. Brent looked somewhere off screen. And then, one by one, every thumbnail on the call watched a new camera turn on. Serena's face appeared on 17 screens at once. The call went completely silent. She looked directly into her camera and spoke clearly, without raising her voice, without any emotion she hadn't chosen to put there. I've been on this call the entire time. I heard everything, and I recorded all of it. She left the meeting. She closed her laptop, set it on the coffee table, and looked at Thea across the room. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Then Thea opened a new document on her screen and started typing. Serena had left the call, but her family wasn't finished. And the next move they made would take the fight somewhere Serena had never wanted it to go. On Monday morning, Serena was walking from the parking garage toward her office building when she saw Douglas standing in the lobby through the glass front doors. And he had not come alone. She stopped on the sidewalk for a moment. Douglas was there. Connie was beside him, sitting in one of the lobby chairs with her purse in her lap, like she was waiting for a Dr. S appointment. Brent was standing near the reception desk with his phone already out, and the way he was holding it, angled slightly outward, screen facing the room, told Serena everything she needed to know about why he had it in his hand. The front desk receptionist called her cell before she even reached the door. Serena, there are some people here saying they your family. They asking to come up. Don't let them up. Serena said. "I'll be right there." She pushed through the front doors and walked toward them. Douglas turned when he heard her footsteps, and before she could say a single word, he raised his voice, loud enough that the two people waiting near the elevator looked over, loud enough that the receptionist straightened in her chair. "My daughter is letting her brother lose everything while she sits up in this fancy office collecting a paycheck. I raised her. I gave her every opportunity she has. And this is what she does with it." Serena kept her voice low. "Dad, you need to leave. I'm not leaving until you agree to sit down and have a real conversation about what you owe this family." Brent stepped closer, phone raised, speaking toward the camera with the practiced confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment. "This is my sister. She has a 2-bedroom apartment all to herself, and she wanted to give her homeless brother a place to stay, just so everyone knows what kind of person she is." A colleague from the 3rd floor was walking through the lobby. He slowed down, looked at Serena, and then kept walking, the particular kind of eye contact that meant he had seen everything and would say nothing about it. The building's security manager appeared from the side corridor. He asked Douglas and Brent politely but directly to lower their voices. Douglas told him this was a private family matter. The security manager told him that this was a professional building and that if they did not lower their voices, he would need to ask them to leave. Connie stood up from her chair. "We're not leaving," she announced, to no one in particular, in the tone of a woman who had decided that today was the day she would not be moved. "Not until my daughter agrees to talk to us like a human being." The security manager called the front desk. The front desk called the building's non-emergency line. 2 officers arrived within 10 minutes. They were calm, professional, and entirely unmoved by Connie's explanation that this was a family situation that had been blown out of proportion by her ungrateful daughter. Douglas tried a different approach. Measured, reasonable, explaining that they simply wanted to speak with Serena in a neutral setting. The officers told him that the building management had the right to remove anyone causing a disturbance, and that if they did not leave voluntarily, they would be escorted out. They left. Not quietly. Connie made sure of that. But they left. Serena spent the next 40 minutes in her manager's office. He had been her direct supervisor for 4 years. He knew her work, trusted her judgment, and had never had a reason to question either. He listened to the full story without interrupting, and when she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Serena, I believe you," he said. "Everything you read describing, I believe it completely. But I need you to understand my position. If your family comes to this building again and causes a scene like that, I want to have a choice. HR will escalate it above both of us, and at that point it's out of my hands." She nodded. She understood. That evening, she was sitting on her couch when the notification started. Brent had posted the video he recorded in the lobby, the clip of Douglas raising his voice, Serena standing there, the security manager in the background. The caption read, "When your sister lives large and lets her brother sleep on your parents' couch." Just a regular Monday. Within 2 hours, it had been shared by Aunt Marlene, 3 cousins, and 2 people Serena had not spoken to since a family reunion 6 years ago. The comments came fast, some from relatives, some from strangers who had been fed exactly one side of the story and had decided that was enough to weigh in. Serena read through them slowly, one by one. Her thumb hovered over the reply button more than once. She didn't type anything. She set her phone down, picked it back up, and called Thea. When Thea answered, Serena said 3 words. Let's start now. Thea knew exactly what that meant, and what she was about to set in motion would make it impossible for Douglas, Connie, and Brent to keep fighting this battle the way they had been. In the month that followed, everything collapsed under its own weight, and Serena didn't have to lift a finger to make it happen. 6 weeks after the courthouse, Douglas and Connie lost the house on Clover Ridge Drive. The mortgage payments they had been quietly missing for months finally caught up with them. The foreclosure process in Tennessee does not wait for a family to get its story straight. And with Douglas' income gone for nearly a year, there was nothing left to stop it. The house was gone. They moved into Aunt Marlene's home in Brentwood. Aunt Marlene, who had organized the family Zoom call, who had cut Jade off mid-sentence for asking a reasonable question, who had told Serena at the birthday party that giving away her apartment made her generous, now had Douglas and Connie in her guest room, using her bathroom, sitting at her kitchen table every morning. 3 weeks in, she started texting Jade. The complaints began small. It's a lot. Having people here full-time, and grew more specific as the days passed. Douglas had strong opinions about how Aunt Marlene managed her household. Connie rearranged things in the kitchen without asking and seemed surprised when this bothered anyone. Neither of them had offered to help with groceries or utilities. Aunt Marlene told Jade she hadn't understood, before now, how exhausting it was to live with people who treated generosity as something they were owed. Jade forwarded one of the messages to Serena. Serena read it once, set her phone on the counter, and didn't say anything about it to anyone. She didn't need to. Brent moved in shortly after, which meant Aunt Marlene's situation went from difficult to something she had not agreed to at all. He continued posting online. The same framing, the same language of a man surrounded by people who had failed him. The lobby video was removed after Thea submitted a formal content takedown request. Brent posted about the removal, called it an attack on his freedom to speak. He did not apologize to Serena. He did not reach out. At 34 years old, having watched a judge grant a restraining order against him and his parents lose their home to foreclosure, Brent's response was to find a new way to tell the same story in which he was the one who had been wronged. Some people do not learn from consequences. They just relocate them onto someone else. Uncle Phil sent Serena a text message. 2 lines, nothing more. You did the right thing. Don't look back. She saved it. It was the only message from that side of the family she kept. The only person from the extended family who remained in her life was Jade, who had asked the question nobody else would ask, told the truth nobody else would tell, and never once asked Serena to be grateful for it. That kind of person is worth keeping. Serena knew it, and she did. She did not reach out to Douglas or Connie. She did not respond to the relatives who, once the full picture became public knowledge, sent softened messages trying to walk back what they said during the worst of it. She was not interested in managing his discomfort about having been wrong. The restraining order was in place. The distance was in place. She had no intention of revisiting either one. Before we close out today's story, I want to take a moment because I think what Serena went through deserves more than just a recap. What struck me most about this story is not the apartment. It's the pattern. Douglas and Connie didn't wake up one day and decide to take something from their daughter. This was a slow accumulation of a mindset that said, what you have belongs to us if we decide we need it. And the truly dangerous part is how that kind of thinking gets dressed up in the language of love and family and sacrifice, so that when you finally say no, you re the one who looks cold. Serena said no. Calmly, legally, consistently, and she paid a real price for it. She lost relationships. She had to hire a lawyer. She had to stand in a courtroom against her own parents. That is not a small thing. But she came out the other side with something that cannot be taken from her: the knowledge that she held her ground when it mattered. Here's what I personally believe, and I'll say it plainly. Family does not give anyone the right to what you built. Love is not a transaction where someone else gets to set the exchange rate. And if the people around you only support you when you are giving them something, that is not love. That is leverage. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in Serena's position, parents at your door with a lawyer, papers in hand, your own family telling you to sign, what would you have done? Would you have held the line the way she did? Or would the pressure have gotten to you? There is no wrong answer. I genuinely want to know. Drop your response in the comments below. And if you've ever been through something like this yourself, share it. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe to Family Drama Stories so you never miss what's coming next. Every comment, every share, every new subscriber tells me this channel is reaching the people who need it, and that means everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Serena is still in Nashville, still in her apartment, the one she saved for, negotiated for, and refused to give away. The walls are still the color she chose. The mortgage comes out of her account on the same date every month. Nobody took it. Nobody ever will.